We were told that Yhwach was an unredeemable monster, a genocidal tyrant who wanted to collapse the three worlds and erase the concept of death, just to satisfy his own twisted ego. For over 20 years, the Gotei 13 has been framed as the thin line defending the universe from absolute annihilation. But what if the Soul Society spent the last 1,000 years lying to you? What if the captains you root for are actually protecting the most horrific sin in human history, and Yhwach's bloody crusade was completely justified? When you look past the propaganda of the Shinigami, a terrifying reality emerges. The Quincy King wasn't trying to destroy the universe. He was trying to save his father from an eternity of torture. To understand why Yhwach might actually be the savior of the Bleach universe, we have to uncover the forbidden history that Shunsui Kyoraku, Genrusai Yamamoto, and the Central 46 tried so desperately to bury. To truly understand the Quincy perspective, we have to look back to the original sin that created the Bleach universe, a history only revealed in the Can't Fear Your Own World light novels. Millions of years ago, the world wasn't split into the Soul Society, the human realm, and Hueco Mundo. There was no cycle of reincarnation. Life and death were unified. There was no fear of passing away because existence was a single, flowing river. However, this primordial world had a fatal flaw. Because life and death were a singular state, progress stagnated. Worse, the world began to sink into a chaotic void as massive primal hollows began devouring souls. The universe was on the brink of collapsing into a giant, spiritual black hole. Then a miracle happened. The universe gave birth to a god, the Soul King. He possessed an unmatched power known as the Almighty, which allowed him to eradicate the hollows and save humanity. But humanity's saviors quickly became his executioners. The ancestors of the five noble families, including the Kuchiki, Shihoin, Shiba, and the sinister Tsuneyashiro clan, grew terrified of the Soul King's absolute power. They wanted control over the universe. They didn't want a god, they wanted a tool. In an act of unthinkable betrayal, the five ancestors ambushed the Soul King. Even though the Soul King chose not to fight back, believing a split world would be safer for humanity, the ancestors didn't trust him. They mutilated him. They sliced off his arms, tore out his heart, ripped away his internal organs, and sealed his remaining, conscious torso inside a crystal matrix to serve as a cosmic battery. They created the three worlds by forcing a knife into the back of their creator. This brings us to the biggest misconception in all of Bleach, the role of the Royal Guard. Squad Zero are always introduced as the ultimate defenders of the peace, but in reality, they are not bodyguards. They are the highest-ranking prison wardens in history. Ichigo Kurosaki, the monk who commands Squad Zero, knows the truth. The Soul King has not been a ruler for millions of years. He is a sentient, living corpse held in eternal, agonizing torment. His mere presence stabilizes the borders of reality, but he has absolutely no free will. The horror goes even deeper. The light novels confirm that if the Soul King ever truly died, Ichigo's backup plan was to mutilate Ichigo Kurosaki, chop off his limbs, and stuff him into the crystal barrier to take the Soul King's place. The entire foundation of the Soul Society relies on the ongoing torture of a hybrid god. When you look at the system through this lens, the Gotei 13 are not heroes fighting for justice. They are soldiers enforcing a systemic, cosmic horror. Now let's look at Yhwach. Yhwach is the biological son of the Soul King. Every single second of his existence, he could feel his father's distant, agonizing screams echoing through his soul. Imagine discovering that your father was carved up like meat and turned into a battery for a society that praises itself for being righteous. Wouldn't you want to burn that society to the ground? When Yhwach invades the Soul King Palace during the Thousand-Year Blood War and stabs his father, the anime frames it as an act of pure evil. But look closely at Yhwach's dialogue. He calls the Soul King an impermissible object and says he is putting an end to his father's long humiliation. It wasn't malice, it was euthanasia. It was mercy. By absorbing his father, Yhwach was finally liberating the Soul King from millions of years of chains. His ultimate goal, the collapse of the realms, wasn't meant to wipe out humanity. It was meant to return the universe to its natural primordial state, a world where a father would never have to mourn a dead son, and a child would never have to fear the dark, because the concept of death would be completely eliminated. Yhwach was trying to conquer the universal fear of mortality, but the ultimate tragedy of Bleach is that Yhwach failed. Ichigo Kurosaki, operating blindly on the lies of the Gotei 13, killed the only man trying to free the universe. By defeating Yhwach, Ichigo accidentally protected the corrupt status quo, keeping the horrific cycle of the Soul King alive. However, Tite Kubo left a massive warning for the future. Because Yhwach's spiritual pressure is no longer keeping the world in check, the balance of souls is failing, and the gates of hell are now completely destabilized. The Soul Society's original sin is about to come back to haunt them in the upcoming Hell Arc. If you want to see exactly how Ichigo's victory accidentally doomed the universe and paved the way for the terrifying return of the fallen captains, click the linked video right down below where we break down the forbidden lore of the Hell Arc.